Hey, what's up guys, Control here. All the cards from the Witchwood have now been released, so we're going to go over, the next set of 17 or 18. So this is going to be my 5th card review video. Again, I like to preface all the videos by saying all of the cards that I'm reviewing are from a wild perspective. These will be, this will be a video on how all of the cards fit into the wild metagame. Nothing to do with standard, nothing to do with arena. So what you're going to be hearing about the cards is going to be different than from other broadcasters. So, right away. Bonfire Elemental, 5 mana 5/5 Elemental. It's a mage card and a rare. Battlecry, if you played an Elemental last turn, draw a card. So I actually think that this is very fairly statted and has a decent effect. So think of it, it's like Azure Drake for an Elemental deck that doesn't give you spell power, but instead has +1/+1 stats and has the Elemental tag, which is pretty good. So this is definitely a buff to Elemental Mage. That being said though, the only Elementals you run in Mage decks right now are occasionally like Baron Geddon and Frosted's Jaina, which gives you water elementals. And that's basically all that you need. Elemental Mage is not really a thing in this format, as it's just a little bit too fair. It doesn't really do anything that's over the top powerful. It doesn't have any mana cheat mechanics to it. It's kind of just like a mid-rangey kind of archetype that really lacks any kind of oomph, if that makes any sense. There's just nothing super overpowered about it other than Jaina. And the funny thing being is in Wild, you throw Jaina in your Arena Priest deck, or sorry, your Arena Mage deck, and you don't play the elemental bodies with it. So Bonfire Elemental, definitely a good card, but a card that won't really make Elemental Mage playable, I don't think. I'm definitely going to test it out a little bit, see how it fares in Wild for sure. But that being said, I don't think it's going to be super powerful at all. So for me, I'm going to go neutral in this one. It's not terrible. It does improve an archetype, so I'm not going to give it a thumbs down or anything, but I'm not super over the top excited about it. Next up, 4 mana 2/2 Mage Epic Arcane Keysmith. Battlecry, discover a secret, put it into the battlefield. So, in Wild, this card's kind of a crapshoot because there's just so many Mage secrets in Wild, it's not going to be consistent at all. Yes, if you run 2 Primordial Glyphs, Kabbalist Tomes, and Arcane Keysmith, sometimes you'll get like 5 or 6 Ice Blocks in your deck, but, it's not going to be super relevant too often. I think the only time this card might even see a little bit of play is a Reno Mage deck. But even in that case, why wouldn't you just run Mad Scientist and Arcanologist and draw the secrets from your deck that you want, rather than having to discover one? So I feel like this card might be one that could be kind of relevant in Standard, with Explosive Runes and Counterspell being 2 very strong cards to discover. But in Wild, the card pool is just too large as far as secrets go to consistently get good ones. So for me, Arcane Keysmith is going to be, again, a neutral response, just because it could potentially be good in Reign of Mage. Next up, 4 mana 3/3 Witchwood Piper. It's a rare, and it reads Battlecry, draw the lowest cost minion from your deck. So this one's actually really interesting. It might not look like it's that cool to you guys at first glance, but this card is really, really cool for combo decks. Specifically, the one that I'm thinking about right away is just like Mali Shaman, a deck that has the potential to really just run cards like Barnes, Emperor, Thorson, and Malygos. So you could, guarantee that you're going to be drawing Barnes or Thorson with this card. Only issue with that is it would decrease the consistency of your Barnes, basically. But the fact that it's targeted card draw is really powerful. Any kind of a tutor effect that draws a specific card from your deck is extremely powerful in this game in combo decks. So Witchwood Piper is going to it's going to have to be one of those cards that you really build your deck around. But I think the potential of the card, and especially this being a card forever in Wild, is really sick. So I think Witchwood Piper, whether it's a card that's relevant now or in the future, it will be good. So for me, I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up just because I think this effect is very, very powerful. And probably one of the more underrated cards from the set so far that I've seen just overall from people's general perspective. Because the stat line's not over the top good, but yeah, the targeted draw is nuts, man. I like it a lot. Next up, 3 mana 2/2 Druid Common, Druid's Scythe. Choose one, transform into a 4/2 with Rush or a 2/4 with Taunt. So I'm going to assume when you play this with Fandral, it's a 4/4 with Rush and Taunt. And I'm also going to assume that it's a beast because it's one of the Druid of the cards. So, like Druid of the Claw, Druid of the Saber, both beasts. So, I'm going to assume Druid of the Scythe is also a beast. So this card, just by itself, I mean, if it was a 4/2 with charge, I think that would be a lot more impactful and relevant in aggro Druid. However, it being a 4/2 with Rush, not too great. And a 2/4 with Taunt isn't very good with the 3 mana price tag attached to it when you can play something like Crypt Lord, which also isn't that insane, but at least it synergizes a lot better with single target and AoE buffs in Aggro Druid. So for me, Druid of the Scythe is just a card that has a little bit too low of a power level and might be relevant in Standard, but definitely not in Wild. So for me, competitive perspective, 2 thumbs down. Next up, 3 mana Druid Common, Ferocious Howl. Draw a card, gain 1 armor for each card in your hand. So this is definitely just trying to push the hand taunt druid archetype a little bit harder, and this seems to be one of the cookie cutter, you know, pushing your face archetypes that Blizzard is kind of pushing with the Witchwood. That unfortunately isn't relevant in Wild at all because none of the cards are really that powerful. It's kind of crappy because some of them are okay, but none of them really synergize with N'Zoth or even Hadronics too well. I believe we went over the 3/12 taunt card, which does go over Hadronics well, but it doesn't work with N'Zoth, and unfortunately Ferocious Howl just seems like it's a little bit worse than cards like Branching Pass that can draw you card or gain you a lot of armor consistently for just 1 more mana. Other thing is, like, you don't get punished for having an empty hand. So Druid decks in Wild right now really just rely on, you know, the Wild Growth, Nourish, UI combo to kind of just have a big hand and get themselves propelling into the late game. So I find that a lot of the time you're just not going to have a big hand until the game's basically over already. So I don't think Ferocious Hell is going to be too relevant in a Wild. And, you know, I find it hard to slot this card in a deck over Branching Paths. So for me, it's just a worse version of that card. So for Ferocious Hell, for me, 2 thumbs down. No Poke, thank you so much for the sub, man. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a great day. You, real one, let's go. Hope you're having a good one, man. Thank you. Next up, 5 mana 4/1 Bewitched Guardian. It's a rare druid card. Reads Taunt, Battlecry, gain +1 health for each card in your hand. So again, the whole hand druid thing, Bewitched Guardian, I don't know why you'd ever run it over Sludge Belcher. Again, it doesn't even have the synergy with Hadronics because it comes back as a 4/1 with Taunt. So like, that's not even good at all. You don't want a 4/1 with Taunt back from Hadronics. Doesn't do anything for N'Zoth, and we have Sludge Belcher. So, I mean, you can try and convince me otherwise, but for me, hand Taunt Druid in Wild is just, again, it's similar to Elemental Mage. You're talking about this a little bit earlier. It's just too fair. These kind of mid-rangey archetypes just don't work when, you know, Mana Cheat is available, Called Arms is a thing, Sea Witch is a thing, Barnes is a thing, Void Caller is a thing. Like, all of these cards just read to me fair and fun Hearthstone, but in a Wild we have Mana Cheat Hearthstone, so you can't do too much of this kind of stuff. Interesting card again. New archetypes are always fun for me, so stuff like Hand Druid's cool, and I'll probably play it a little bit in Standard. But in a Wild, unfortunately, it's just not going to be a thing. So 2 thumbs down.
Wild, alright.
Whiskey. This is 9 months, buddy. Hope you're having a great day, man. You, real one. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Next up, 3 mana 2/5, Paladin, Rare, Paragon of Light. Well, this minion has 3 or more attack. It has Taunt and Lifesteal. So, I'm trying to figure out what deck you would even want to run this in. And the initial thought is Quest Paladin, because it's, you know, a deck that you run a lot of buffs in. But you don't really want a 3 mana 2/5 in Quest Paladin at all. That doesn't have any effects until we could have Taunt and Lifesteal. So I personally don't see a place for Paragon of Light in Wild. Again, I think this card just fits the whole healing kind of idea that Paladin has pushing for this expansion, and it won't really be relevant in Wild. One thing you can note about this card is it could be the waifu card of the expansion, which is important for the weebs. Yeah, new animated girlfriend, very cute. But from a competitive perspective, 2 thumbs down. Next up, 2 mana rare Warlock card, Curse of Weakness. Echo, give all enemy minions a -2 attack until your next turn. So my thoughts on this card is that it's basically just like Frost Nova. So this just gives Warlock like Nova Doom. And it's like Frost Nova, but it also has flexibility where like you can use it as many times as you want with Echo. So I actually feel like Curse of Weakness might not be main decked in all Soul Warlock decks, but I definitely think that Warlock and even Cublock can definitely slot this card in if they so choose to. I don't think it'll be a main deck card in Cublock, I think it'll be a tech card, but I think this could become a main deck card in Reno Lock. I think the effect is very powerful, and this is like a very fair but strong way that Echo can work, I think. So I personally find this card to be very powerful, and I will definitely see it. I will definitely play it myself, and I do think that we will see it being played in Wild. So for me, Curse of Weakness is 2 thumbs up for competitive. Holy shit! It is 2 thumbs up from a competitive perspective. Next up, 2 mana 2/1 Squashling Echo Battlecry, restore 2 health. This card's trash. 2 thumbs down. Nothing I can really say to you know, make you think this is good. It never fits the Reno Priest deck. It just doesn't do anything in this format. It's not good. It's weak. Stat line's atrocious. The effect is bad. Why are you playing 2 mana for a Voodoo Doctor? There's no reason. 5 dust, baby. Let's go. Next up, Ghost Light Angler, a 2-mana 2/2 common Shaman Murloc card that reads Echo. So, deck that instantly jumps to my mind, Quest Shaman. Would you slot this into Quest Shaman? No joke, like, potentially. It could work, it's not very aggressive, but the Echo tag can help you really get the quest on in the mid-game when you just lack the Murloc draws that you need. Sometimes you will have dead hands. So I feel like with this card, it's kind of just like, do you want to sacrifice running a 3/2 to have the 2/2 with the Echo effect? +1 attack is usually going to be more relevant, but sometimes Ghostlight Angler will just get you 2 Megafin. And again, that's usually how you win, just play Megafin, then vomit your hand over and over again. But I do think there's a little bit of potential for this card. And I think that if I do play Quest Shaman, I would play Ghostlight Angler. So for me, Ghostlight Angler, 1 thumb up. Decent card, not bad. Next up, one of the more interesting cards this expansion, and probably the coolest one for me so far. 9 mana 6/6 Shaman Legendary Shudderwalk. Battle cry, repeat all other battle cries from cards you play this game, targets chosen randomly. So this just works really, really well with Jades. Because, I mean, you can't randomly target Jade's battle cries. So I think that this is really good for Jade Shaman, and if we ever approach a more mid-rangey metagame, again, this just goes back to the whole Naga Sea Witch, Barnes, Call to Arms, Voidcaller being nerfed. If that ever happens, or in tournaments where these cards are banned, ridiculously powerful.
Thank you for the awesome content. I really enjoy watching. You are very good at this.
Thanks, Cookie. Appreciate it, man. You're having a great day, dude. Thank you for the kind message, man. Appreciate it. But yeah, with Shudderwalk, it's basically just a really good card for that. Because, you know, you can get more Jades. Basically, whatever battle cards you build your deck around will be triggered again. Just super great. The issue, though, it does have a 9 mana price tag to it, but this card has the power attached to it to really be a late game powerhouse. This is sub Aphrodite. Appreciate the 14. Hope you're having a great day. So I'm really excited for this, and this will probably be one of the cards that I experiment with the most. But again, it doesn't suit the current metagame, unfortunately. In community-held tournaments like the ones that I run where Sea Witch, Barnes, Voidcaller, and Call to Arms are banned, then Shudderwalk is a card that can shine. Any tournament with a banned format, or you know, if you're playing like friendly matches with your friends back and forth where you're not playing those mana cheat cards, then I think this card is ridiculous. But in the current metagame, not too great. But with the eternal kind of nature of WoW, this is one of those cards that will pop off and just really go over the top and be a powerful card that I think could define decks like Jade Shaman forever, really. Yeah, that's for me. Shudderwalk is 2 thumbs up, even though it's not competitive really right now. Next up, 2 mana 2/2 Baleful Banker. It's an epic and reads battle cry, choose a friendly minion, shuffle a copy of it into your deck. So it's very much like the 3 mana 3/4 Mage card Manic Soulcaster, which wasn't necessarily terrible in Reno Mage if you just wanted you know, another Kazakis in you know, a slower meta game. So like all these cards were relevant before Sea Witch and stuff popped up. Like I have to continuously talk about this, but it's very important because Sea Witch could get nerfed and all these cards could be very relevant, I think. You know, among the other cards that mana cheat as well, but you know what I mean. So Baleful Banker I think could be relevant in Reno-esque decks to kind of play for longer games in a more control-centric meta. Again, without mana cheat. Because, I mean, I would play this over Manic Soul Priest just because the mana cost is lower. Stat line on cards like that don't matter, so I think Baleful Banker is actually a better card than that. Manic Soulcaster, by the way, not Manic Soul Priest, Manic Soulcaster. Much better than that for that reason. So I do think this is a decent card, but again, it doesn't suit the current metagame. And it's not one that's going to be like over-the-top defining metagames or decks like Shuddershock is. So for me, I think Baleful Banker is just like neutral. It's a good card in the right deck, but the right deck that it's good in doesn't really work right now, unfortunately. Next up is Zap, is 0 mana. 0 mana Shaman card. That's a common. And it reads deal 2 damage to a minion, overload 1. So it's like shitty backstab, basically. Which kind of sucks. Obviously, the 0 mana cost is really good initially, but the overload is really, really bad. Yeah, 1 mana deal 2 damage is terrible, but it's really bad because it can't go face. I think if Zap was a card that just read deal 2 damage, the 1 overload tag attached to it would be very, very fair, especially costing 0 mana. But I think at that point the card could be kind of overpowered, especially in Mali Shaman and stuff. So it makes sense that it's directed to only to a minion, but in hand, that means this card is too balanced to see play. I think it's not, you know, going to do anything really for you, especially with a lot of minions like Ship's Cannon having 3 health. This isn't really going to give you a huge tempo lead, especially with the tempo you're paying for it on the next turn with the overload. So I really don't think Zap's going to be that nuts, or even make the cut in any Shaman deck at all, really. So for me, Zap is 2 thumbs down. You know, 0 mana cards by themselves should be really good if they have a strong attack. Zap does not, though. 2 damage to a minion, overload 1. Not for me. Next up is Carrion Drake, 5 mana 3/7 Hunter, rare, battlecry. If a minion died this game, gain poisonous, and it's Dragon. Dragon Hunter. Very interesting archetype. That being said, though, a 3/7 with poisonous isn't a very good dragon, I don't think. You want your dragon to read something like Taunt, Card Draw, Battlecry, deal damage, something along those lines, and not so much poisonous. You want it to interact with the board the turn that is played, or do something that's really beneficial for you instantaneously. Carrion Drake is one of those ones that requires an activation and just gives you poisonous, so it doesn't really fit Hunter's game plan of just going face, which really sucks. It's actually terrible. Because you can't just like drag it face. It's a 3/7 for 5 mana. It's weakly statted. It's not a beast, so you can't strap Houndmaster on it. And it's a dragon that requires a minion to die this turn. Which is quite tough to have activated because it one already assumes that you're either going to have board and be able to make a favorable trade. You're going to be able to make an unfavorable trade, or you're going to have enough mana to remove something on board with like a spell. You could also argue that you would have a weapon up like Ehornbow and then remove something that way, which would be fine and that would do it as well. But I feel like the way that you activate it is really tough. I think just looking at the card by itself and ignoring everything else, it's not a bad card. 5 mana 3/7 with poisonous is okay, because you know it's not that hard to activate, but it's also not that easy. That being said, though, it doesn't do too much right now in Wild at the moment. Dragon Hunter's not a good archetype, and this isn't a card that's like Draconoid operative level of OP that will just push it over the top. It's not a 5/6 that reads Battlecry, choose a card from your opponent's deck and put it in your hand. It says gain poisonous on a 3/7, which definitely does not do as much as that. So for me, Carrion Drake is probably just going to be 1 thumb down. It doesn't really do too much. It's an okay card. It's not over the top or anything. Just very mediocre. Next up, 5 mana 1/3, Vile Brood, Skitter, Poisonous, and Rush. It's a beast, and it is a Hunter card. So, this card's okay because of Rexar. You can get Poisonous and Rush for 5 mana. But, I mean, it's a 5 mana 1/3, dude. So, I mean, come on. It's like 5 mana remove a card. You can just run Hunter's Mark for 1 mana and then trade a minion into something. I just don't see what deck this actually fits in. It's one of those cards you get off Web Spinner sometimes, and you're kind of like, I have to use it, but it occasionally be good. It just fits in that whole category of cards that you discover and are okay sometimes, but never a card that you actually put in your deck. So for me, Vile Brood Skitter, 2 thumbs down. Last card of this video is going to be Wormguard, 7 mana 3/11, common card. It's neutral and reads Battlecry if you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and taunt. So it's another one of those dragon cards that Dragon decks do have the option to run. And it is a 4/11 with taunt, which is actually really good for 7 mana if you're playing you know, against a fast deck. Really, really thick body for Combo Priest to be running. That being said, though, it's not a dragon, so you can't discover it off of another Spite, and it's also a 7 mana card, which you don't really want to be running in Combo Priest. Or really any dragon deck. I would almost always prefer to have Dr. Boom in dragon decks than a card like this. Even Bone Mirror is probably better. Not that Bone Mirror is 7 mana, it's 8 now. But there's just stronger cards, I think, that you can run than this. This is a very fair card, and again, fair is not what you're looking for in Wild right now. Especially expensive fair cards. Cheap fair cards, sometimes you can fit in your deck. Because having a cheap fair card on curve is still good. But an expensive fair card on curve, not too great. So for me, Wormguard, 2 thumbs down. Okay, thanks for tuning in, guys. Feel free to hit that sub button, smash the like button as well if you like the video, and leave a comment if you agree or disagree on any cards. Definitely interested to hear some feedback on what I think. I'm basically just looking at them for the first time right now. I went over them very briefly, and I'm basically just giving you guys a overview on what I think off the top of my head. So if you guys disagree with anything, let me know. Have a good day, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.